NASCAR has officially denied Cleetus McFarland's entry to race at Talladega Superspeedway, and now the man who put him in that car in the first place, Richard Childress, is speaking out. This isn't just a story about a YouTube star hitting a wall in professional motorsport. This is a story about two worlds colliding, grassroots car culture and one of America's most storied racing institutions, and what happens when the experiment gets real. To understand why this decision landed the way it did, you have to go back to where it all started. This wasn't Cleetus McFarland knocking on NASCAR's door. It was Ty Dillon, Cup Series driver and grandson of Richard Childress himself, who made the first move. After watching Cleetus's content explode across social media, Dillon reached out personally to ask him what his goals were in racing. Cleetus told him directly, he loves superspeedways, and his ultimate dream is the Daytona 500. That answer was enough for Ty Dillon to take the conversation to his grandfather at Richard Childress Racing. But Dillon attached one non-negotiable condition to the entire arrangement: they would only move forward if Cleetus stayed completely authentic to who he is. No polishing him up. No repackaging him for a corporate audience. If the process stopped being fun and genuine, they would already be failing. That condition matters because it defines the entire foundation of this deal. The formal announcement came in early March 2026. Cleetus McFarland signed a 2-year deal to run 3 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series races per season with Richard Childress Racing. The moment that news went public, NASCAR's online community caught fire, and not entirely in a celebratory way. The criticism that followed didn't come from anonymous accounts. It came from people inside the sport with decades of credibility. Kyle Petty led the charge publicly, arguing that internet personalities have no business sharing a racetrack with professional stock car drivers. Then Kyle Busch, who actually races for RCR in the Cup Series, questioned the decision directly, pointing out the enormous experience gap between Cleetus and every other driver on that grid. Busch noted that his own 10-year-old son Brexton had likely logged more competitive race laps than Cleetus had at that point. Bubba Wallace's spotter Freddie Kraft also raised safety concerns publicly before a single lap had been turned. Cleetus heard every word of it, and before his debut race, he addressed it head-on. His response was straightforward: if Richard Childress called any of those guys and offered them a seat, every single one of them would have taken it. And NASCAR approved it, so I'm in. That response was both direct and logically sound. He wasn't dismissing the criticism, he was acknowledging the reality of the situation and moving forward. The action moved to Rockingham Speedway on Saturday, April 4th, where Cleetus was scheduled to run double duty. First up was the ARCA Menard Series East race, and this part of the day went well by any objective measure. He kept the car clean, raced with discipline, and came home with a 4th-place finish, his first career top 5 in any NASCAR-sanctioned division. After the race, Cleetus got visibly emotional. He dedicated that finish to his late friend Greg Biffle, the former NASCAR driver who died in a plane crash in December along with his wife and 2 children. Cleetus said he just turned left for Greg Biffle all day and hoped he would have been proud. That moment captured exactly why Cleetus McFarland connects with millions of fans. There is no performance in it. He is exactly who he presents himself to be. Then came the O'Reilly Series race, and the tone shifted completely. Cleetus started 35th out of 38 cars in the number 33 RCR Chevrolet. On just the 4th lap, he got caught in a 3-wide situation entering turn 1, went sideways, and barely kept it off the wall. From that point forward, the race became a survival mission. There were multiple spins, a speeding penalty on pit road, 1 caution flag directly caused by Cleetus, and a final finish of 32nd place, ending the race 6 laps behind race winner William Sawalek after completing 244 of the 250 scheduled laps. Cleetus was completely transparent about it afterward. He said it was the hardest thing he's ever done in his life, and joked that he spun out 50 times and almost died 10 of those times. But he was also careful to point out what didn't happen. He didn't make contact with another competitor's car. He didn't ruin anyone else's race. He brought the number 33 back in one piece after running almost the full distance. That last part mattered. But it also wasn't enough to satisfy everyone watching. The most important voice that spoke after the race wasn't a pundit or a critic. It was Danny Lawrence, RCR's vice president of O'Reilly Series operations, who spoke publicly to motorsport.com. His words were measured but honest. Lawrence acknowledged that there were moments during the race where Cleetus could have caused a much larger incident and managed to avoid it, and he gave him credit for that. But then Lawrence said something that drew significant attention from within the NASCAR community: there were a lot of things we wanted to see happen that simply didn't. The team never got to execute a live pit stop under race conditions. Once Cletus went sideways early in the race, the entire strategy shifted to conservation. Just keep rolling, don't push anything, survive until the checkered flag. Lawrence also said plainly that he would not be surprised if NASCAR asked the team to run additional races before clearing Cletus for Daytona or Talladega, because the speed and intensity at those tracks is unlike anything he had experienced so far, and everyone involved wanted to be fully prepared before making that step. That statement from Lawrence was not a ringing endorsement. It was a signal. And NASCAR acted on it within days. Not everyone in the paddock was negative, however. Justin Allgaier, the 2024 O'Reilly Series champion, praised Cletus publicly and said he was proud of how he handled the pressure and conducted himself on the racetrack. Ty Dillon also stood firmly behind his driver, stating that NASCAR should be proud of how Cletus represented himself throughout the entire weekend at Rockingham, both on track and in front of the cameras. The analyst community, however, was less forgiving. Tommy Baldwin compared Cletus's jump into the O'Reilly Series to skipping from 7th grade straight to college. The developmental process in motorsport exists for a reason: late models, ARCA, building repetitions at each level before stepping up. There are no shortcuts at 180 miles per hour. Freddie Kraft went further, pointing to a specific moment during the race broadcast where Cletus's in-car audio was played publicly. In that exchange with his spotter, Cletus appeared confused about what the term "inside" meant in a racing context, a term and concept that Kraft described as NASCAR 101, the kind of foundational knowledge every driver should have before stepping into a professional series. Even Mark Martin, who had been one of Cletus's more supportive voices within the sport, delivered a candid assessment. Martin noted that the best part of Cletus right now is his interviews, a compliment that simultaneously acknowledged how far his driving still needs to go. Martin agreed that ARCA is the right level for Cletus at this stage of his development, and that assessment ended up aligning exactly with the official position that followed. On Tuesday, NASCAR made it official. Cletus McFarland is not approved to compete in the O'Reilly Series at Talladega Superspeedway. He has been redirected to the Truck Series and ARCA until he can demonstrate more consistent car control and racecraft under competitive conditions. Dale Earnhardt Jr. backed the decision publicly and in specific terms. Earnhardt said he watched the truck test, the O'Reilly Series test, and the race at Rockingham, and in all three, Cletus was visibly struggling to keep the car positioned where it needed to be on the racetrack. Earnhardt said he saw enough across all three events to justify withholding approval for Daytona and Talladega, and suggested that 1, 2, or possibly 3 more events at less dangerous tracks should come first before that conversation is revisited. Richard Childress Racing did not dispute the ruling. The organization's position, consistent with what Danny Lawrence had already signaled publicly, was that more seat time is the correct path forward and that they remain committed to the 2-year agreement with Cletus. Cletus posted his reaction on Facebook. He called it a kick in the nuts. But he followed that immediately by saying it was not the devastating blow it might appear to be from the outside. His words: "He just needs more time on track and more opportunities to learn the craft, and he is going to go get them. No drama. No accusations. No blaming the organization or the sanctioning body. He took the decision at face value and stated his intention to continue working. Now step back from the individual story and look at what the data says about this experiment at a broader level." When Cletus raced at Rockingham, O'Reilly Series viewership was up over 10% compared to the same race the previous year. That same measurable audience increase happened during his Truck Series debut at Daytona. These are not subjective impressions. These are concrete viewership numbers showing that Cletus McFarland is pulling new audiences into NASCAR, people who may never have watched a single stock car race before discovering his content on YouTube. For a sport that has spent years working to expand its fan base beyond its traditional demographic, that number is not a minor footnote. It is evidence that the concept, however imperfect the execution has been, is working at the business level. The real challenge now sitting in front of both NASCAR and Richard Childress Racing is structuring a development path for Cletus that allows him to grow at a realistic and safe pace, at the appropriate competitive level, without squandering the audience opportunity he represents. The current answer to that challenge is more ARCA, more Truck Series, more repetitions, more learning. And Cletus McFarland, based on every public statement he has made throughout this entire process, genuinely understands that. He said from the beginning that he never expected NASCAR to simply wave him through. He understood the process existed for legitimate reasons, and he said he is taking the opportunity in front of him and doing the work required to earn the next step. So here is the question this story leaves on the table, and it is one worth thinking about seriously: does Cletus McFarland belong in NASCAR? Is this crossover between digital media and professional motorsport genuinely good for the sport long-term, bad for it, or something far more complicated than either answer allows? Drop your honest take in the comments below. This community consistently produces some of the most informed and direct NASCAR conversations on the platform, and this particular topic deserves that level of discussion. If you want real, fact-based NASCAR coverage without filler or manufactured outrage, subscribe to this channel right now. New videos go up every week covering everything happening in the sport. And if this video gave you something concrete to think about, hit that like button on the way out. It helps more NASCAR fans find this channel and keeps this conversation going at the level it deserves.